Anyway, it's very nice to be here with you in person doing this interview, and also to be here in Switzerland, which feels the right place to be. Can we start? It would be interesting if you could tell us a little bit about your early life and your formative years, and later to see how that informed your development as a Jungian analyst.
Yeah, we can do it. Thanks for asking me. Well, I was born close to this place I'm living now, in a small place in Appenzell, and it is over the Bodensee.
Where the cheese comes from.
Where the cheese comes from, but when I went to school, I saw all the time the Bodensee, the Lake of Constance, and I saw also the mountains. And this is my parents have been peasants, but my father was for a long time in politics, and he was the mayor of the place where we have been living. I have 3 siblings, but I'm the youngest, with a distance of 7 years to my older sister. And so I was a little bit by myself, because the older 3, they had been a cluster. And I was the youngest one, and I always loved to be in motion, to do a lot of sports, and to do a lot of playing games and so on. But I was also a child. I did read a lot. I read everything I could get. And when people, I should have helped in the farm from time to time, and then they asked, "Where is the little one?" And then someone said, she is reading somewhere. And I was hiding, and in hiding I was reading. This is, but actually my parents and also my siblings are friendly people. They accepted it, but they found me a little bit strange, because I was the only one who was so interested in reading.
So were the other people also interested in sports and
activities? This was fine. So we did agree on that. We went skiing together, and even when they have been much, they had been much bigger than I was, and so they had been much more able to do tours, and so they took me with them. So this was what happened, was very well with them.
And when you say they were peasants, what do you mean? Were they farmers?
Yeah, they are farmers. The farmers, we had a farm. We had a lot of cows. We had pigs. We had hens. We had a lot of cats, because no one could kill the young cats. And so we had more and more.
Yes.
The kittens, and so we had more and more cats, yeah.
And did you, well, it sounds like reading was a way of surviving then, as the youngest child.
Was a way of surviving, and I think, if you read as a child, it is imagination. And I was it was so different worlds you can meet. And this was a small world where I was living in. And in the books, the world was much bigger. And so I think with my imagination, I got in contact with a lot of ways how you could also live. And then I did also, I was, one game I had, I was just taking wood, different pieces of wood, and then I made a kind of monodrama with it. I put it somewhere, and then we talked together, and they talked back to me. So I think
imaginary friends.
Imaginary friends, and it was a kind of imagination, I think.
Like you.
Yes, and what I had for at least the first 7 years was a grandfather who was telling me a lot of stories, and we have been related to each other. I think we should have taken care of each other, and perhaps we did this. And this was a very good time. And when my grandfather died, I was 7 years old. That was very hard for me.
Yeah. So he helped to develop your imagination, and he realized that this would be good for you.
He was himself sometimes lost in imagination. And he taught me fairy tales, and he told me such a lot of fairy tales, and he didn't mess up all the fairy tales and criminal stories he had. But it was great. For that, it was just great.
So he had an inner world then, I suppose.
He had an inner world. Yeah, and for him it was very important to have an inner world. For him it was also very important that you are honest. He told me when you can lie and when you shouldn't lie. But he found in any case you have to be reliable. He was the one who was talking about values in our family.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went there to school. I did all the schools until I had 15 years. And then I tried to become, my parents didn't, I wanted, even then, I wanted to go to the gymnasium where you be prepared for the university. And my parents found that was absolutely non-reasonable. And the only thing that was reasonable is to become a teacher. And at that time, if you have a diploma as a teacher, this is also the possibility to be accepted afterwards at the university. So it was a good way, and teaching was something I liked because I didn't play so often with dolls, but if I played with dolls, I taught them something. So to be a teacher is very genuine. So I was a teacher.
Teacher of little.
Yeah, teacher of little children, but when I had the diploma, my first employment, my only employment as a teacher was with 12 to 14-year-old girls. And I think this brought me afterwards also to psychology because they had such a lot of problems. And I was only 6 years later, older than them. And we had to try to make the best of this situation. And after 2 years, then I went to university.
So then you were free to make your own choices.
Yeah, and I had money because I had earned money. As a teacher, you can earn money, and then I was not dependent anymore. And if you are not dependent from your parents, you can do what you want to do.
So where did you go to university?
First in Basel and then in Zurich.
And what did you study?
My studies was psychology, philosophy, and German literature. And actually, I was always very much interested in philosophy, but I was much too reasonable, much too much a farmer's daughter to think that you could do a living when you are studying philosophy. And so I thought psychology was also very interesting because I was interested in human beings, what people can do, and so I did it. But Basel was not a good place. I did also a training to become a sport teacher. This is why I went to Basel, because my calculation was if you are a sport teacher, you can earn your money for the studies at the university. But then after a year, I gave up because it was just too much. And I also left Basel because philosophy was very good there. We had been talking a lot about Heidegger, but psychology was not good at this time. And so I went to Zurich, and it was the time 66. And when you have been studying psychology, you had to study depth psychology. That was absolutely clear. It was no question. This is what you had to do. And so I went to Zurich, and I went from Zurich at that time had a lot of institutes. And I went from one institute to the other to look for the requirements and also to get the atmosphere. And the Jung Institute was the most chaotic of all those institutes. It was really very chaotic and lots of people. And there had not been a lot of space. And when I came there, and I said, perhaps I would like to study here. Is there anyone who could give me information? Then the secretary at this time said, oh, the president of the curatorium is quite here. Perhaps he could talk some minutes to you. And then we have been talking, that was Ricklin. We have been talking more than an hour. And he missed an analytical hour because he was talking with me.
So what happened there, do you think?
It was
Yeah.
a very inspiring talk. And yeah, so I decided to be at the Young Institute. But it did also fit because it did fit very much with all my imaginative work, with my love for fairy tales and also dreams at home. Very often in the morning, father said, I had this and this dream, and I have to sell a cow or something like that. He had really an adventurous way to understand dreams, but dreams, to talk about dreams was something normal. So Jung Institute did fit. Actually, the Daseinsanalytische Institut, that is Binswanger, this was also I was also tempted to go there. But it was very, very expensive. And money was a topic. But I felt good at the Young Institute.
So what was the Young, and so that was when? That was 1966, did you say? Is that when it was? Or a bit later?
Yeah, starting from 66, yeah.
And what was it like then? I mean, it'd be interesting to ask you what it's like then and how it's changed over time, I suppose.
You mean the Young Institute?
Yes. What was training? What did training involve in 1966?
Yeah, it was much more liberal than it is now, because the requirements for the office of the Swiss Office of Public Health there had not been, and so the institutes have been free. And when I'm looking at it, I say it was chaotic. What was not chaotic? We had some exams. But it was even the exams. We have the same exams now. They had set up in 48, but the contents, they did vary a lot. And now we try to cover different aspects of psychotherapy. We have the clinical aspect, we have the archetypal aspect, we are talking about relationship issues, we are talking about research and so on. So whatever you are talking nowadays in psychotherapy, we are doing it. And at the Jung Institute at that time, it was easily possible that all people had only been speaking about fairy tales, or everyone had something very important to them, and they had been speaking about this. And this is also very interesting. This is also very nice. And we had this whole competitions between von Franz and Jacobi and Frei Rohn, all these old people who everyone wanted to be the queen.
Because Jung had only quite recently died then.
Yeah.
So was that still around in the atmosphere? Because he died in 61, wasn't it? Was it 61?
Yeah.
So, and this was only 5 years later. So this was who was going to emerge as the queen, as it were, after Jung had died, was it?
Yeah, I didn't feel it at that time. I think the death of Jung for me was far away.
Yeah.
It was really far away.
Yes.
No, it was this new institute, and they tried to maintain. And I was thinking about our supervision. So it was first we had only in group supervision and together with the English speaking, and we German speaking we have been upset because to do supervision in a foreign language is quite is demanding.
So at that stage there was already people training who were Swiss or German speakers, and they already had people who were coming from outside.
The Jung Institute had always people from outside, English speaking, and in this time the English speaking area was even more important than the German one,
because
there had been more
people, larger numbers,
more people, and more people who did speak up. I think we Swiss are much more modest. And actually, I had been very young. I was in the university and at the Jung Institute in the same time. So I like to be at the university because then I recovered from the Jung Institute, and then in the Jung Institute I recovered from the university.
Explain that a bit more.
Yeah, at the university I just studied psychology and philosophy.
Yes.
And there had been very clear requirements and seminars where you could rely on and you could speak up and so. But it is like science is. You have to do it in this and this and this way, and so it is restrictive in a way. And then I went to the Jung Institute, and I think everything goes, and so both aspects I liked a lot.
So it wasn't confusing. You liked it.
I liked it. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, it could have been confusing, but I was not thinking about that it was confusing.
So what did you have to do during your training then in 1966?
Well, I had also to wait until I could do the intermediate exam, and for this I had to write a paper about fairy tales. It's not so different from later. Then I did the intermediate exam, then I had to do interviews, and then they allowed me to see patients, and they always found that I'm really very, very young. And it's very.
Did they try to hold you back because you were young?
They tried to hold me back when I did the diploma. I did the diploma 3 months before I was 28 years old. And the limit was at that time that you have to be 28 years old. And then there were a big discussion if they give me now the diploma or not. And I said, well, it doesn't matter, you can give me the diploma at my 28th birthday. I'm a psychologist, I can do what I want.
So you weren't scared to speak your mind even then?
Not at that point, but this being too young was not so much a topic. It was a topic, and in an underlying atmosphere. She is good, but she is so young.
So we have to hold her back a bit.
Yeah, we hold her back a bit. We have to be careful with her. And I was too young until I was too old.
But is that envy, do you think? What we've talked about a bit this weekend separately, that the older generation at some level don't want to let the younger generation grow and develop.
Yeah, actually I was young. And but I think that is not the hindrance to do good work. And it was also not the hindrance for them to ask me to give lectures. But it was always a bet. Sometimes, but she's also extroverted. I don't consider myself to be that extroverted, but I have an elaboration extroversion.
Oh, I don't think you are that extroverted. I think what you were saying as a child is that you had a lot of inner resources, as well as all the more outgoing things.
You have not to be that one-sided.
Yeah. So just to keep with this thing about what the training involves, so you took your intermediate exam. What were the requirements then for seeing clients, patients, and personal analysis, and so on?
We had the personal analysis. I don't know. I think it was 150 hours you have to have.
So not a lot.
But then it was really these interviews. You had these interviews with the curatorium. And the interviews with the curatorium, that was a severe thing. I remember that I had to go to Yolanda Jacobi, and she really wanted to know who you are, what you are doing, what you think.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So the curatorium, maybe just to explain a bit to the people that might read this, as far as I know, was a structure that Jung himself set up, was it?
Yeah, they set it up in 1948, when actually Jung did not so much set up the training. He was first against, and then and then he accepted it. But when they created the Jung Institute in 1948, they set up this board of trustees, and this board of trustees had a lot of power. They could decide. Actually, they have been 5 or 6 or 7 people, and they could decide. They could decide everything. And this is also in this time when I was studying. They did also. Nowadays we have, since years, we have committees of admission and so on, and it is much more elaborated how you are accepted to do the intermediate exam and then to work with clients. But then they took it in their responsibility.
So they had a lot of power to decide who would come into the institute and who wouldn't, and how the speed with which they would develop.
But they have been very much interested in having young people who are attending the institute. I think it was not so much we want in the to the year 2000, then we had a lot of students, and really in 1 year we had 25 students, and we couldn't manage that. And that was the time when we rejected people. Because it was just too much. And then it decreased enormously. It was so strange that in the 70s and 80s, Jungian psychology was blossoming, and then CBT was blossoming much more. And at about 2000, then our number of applicants was much lower.
Just going back a bit, how long then did it take you to finish your training? How many years before you were fully qualified?
All in all, it took me 4 years. But it was because I was a fast one. Because some of my colleagues took 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
And why would they take 10 years?
Well, some did it because they have been already working, and they did it as a part-time thing. Some did it because they felt that they need much more analysis.
And I mean, one of the qualities since I met you first, which was probably around the Florence Congress, whenever that was, is that you are a natural leader. And I was going to ask you, did that flourish from when you qualified? Were you somebody that took on jobs and tasks and offered things? Because that seems to me to be a gift that you had to be.
Yeah, but I think I was always doing this. I was doing this in school. I was doing this in the university. It is a natural gift. I'm asked to do something, and if I feel good about it, then I do it.
So what qualities, because being a leader is partly you put yourself forward, but partly people see something in you. And I was sort of wondering where that comes from, that capacity to lead. Or
I think it is in a way normal because my parents had been both leaders. My father as the mayor, and my mother was the head of the peasant women. So both did such things, and they had also, their word was worth something in the place where we have been living. And I think my leadership has perhaps, I can't say where it is coming from, but I think what I have is I'm a good team player. I'm not just a leader. I'm really a good team player, and I always can tell people know when they are working with me that I estimate what they are doing. But I'm the one, perhaps also because I'm a little bit fast. Then I say, but we could do it now like this, and this is then the idea of leading. I don't think of me as a leader, but I know people are looking at me in the sense, do you have an idea now, or come on?
So you're I mean, that's different, isn't it? So you feel you're a good facilitator
Yeah,
of getting people to work together creatively.
yeah, because I like that.
Yeah.
I like it to be together. I like to be together, I have to say, with gifted people and with people who are also able to take decisions, even if they are wrong.
Mm.
But I don't like to be in teams where you talk and talk and talk and talk and nothing is arising.
So is that when you get impatient?
Yeah, I get very impatient, yeah.
And irritable?
Yeah.
And irritable, yeah. Yeah, so I suppose we need to define leadership then, what that means. It sounds like what you're saying is you have ideas and you like to get people around you who you can generate interest in other people.
Yeah, I can inspire people.
Yeah.
I think I'm easily inspired also from the inside. I can read something and I'm inspired. And then I can talk to other people and I can inspire them. Or I can give them, I can commute a kind of courage. It can be done. And this is a problem of, I think that's character, don't you think?
Yes, it's character. It's the personality
It's
thing.
the personality, yes.
And that kind of seems to lead naturally on to the IAP, where you were the first female president, which was very important in a very male-dominated world. And I wondered if you could say a bit about that, and also, I think some of the structures in place were very well old-fashioned. That's my perception.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned but fixed.
Yeah.
And it's my impression that you loosened up quite a lot of things.
Yeah, that was what I did. I think I was very often the first woman or the only woman, or in a team or so. And for the international, I think it was so important. I'm happy. I'm now so happy. We have 3 female presidents. And when I stopped my presidency, I said in my farewell speech, I hope that I will not remain the last female president.
And what was it like? What were some of the positive things and some of the challenges for you?
No, the challenges was really what you have been talking about, because the Constitution the Constitution was really very old-fashioned, and there had been all these men, all this old boys club, and you could stay at this board for 28 years and so. And I think this is what I could do in this, but not alone, together with Gustav Bobensiepen, together with Andrew Samuels, they helped me a lot, that we changed the Constitution, and the Constitution is now much more democratic, and they even didn't change until now. And it's again more than 20 years. And I wouldn't mind if they, but it is, I think this is fine. It is more democratic. It means in my time, there had been only the big societies could have been involved in the executive committee. And now I think I think we have now, we had a structure where also small societies can be. Mr. Berg from Denmark would never be a president with the old constitution.
No.
So this was. I think this was. I'm really grateful. I'm also grateful to Gustav and to Andrew for helping. And these two have not been. I have been modern man. This have not been the man who said, "Okay, we have now a woman here that is for the persona." They took me as a human being.
And was it difficult to suggest change? I mean, was there a lot of resistance, did you find?
Not too much, because everyone found that if you are 18 years on the board, you are 24 years on the board, that this is not. I think it was the time. The time allowed the change. It was not just me. It was me, it was a woman, it was the time, it was a new generation of analysts. And the question was at the meeting of the Congress how we do it. And then someone, I don't know, from Australia or so, said I propose that we accept it before even we discussed it. That was a little bit tricky, but if one is standing up and says we have to vote about, we have to vote about. And then it went through. It went very well through, I guess. But this was the most awful meeting of my life, especially not so much when it was happening, but in preparation, because I thought, what will happen?
Say a bit more about that. That it was the most, what were you worried about that would happen?
Yeah, I was worried about that we would have endless conversations, and they would tell us what we missed in all these years, and all these awful fantasies you have when you think I'm doing something, I'm stepping a little bit over the border.
Yeah. But people did vote in favour of the change.
They did vote in favour, and I'm not. I don't know anymore because it's a long time ago. But I think it was it was good. The vote was good in favour.
So what would you say you enjoyed most in your time as president of the IAB, or what gave you most pleasure in that?
It was a very, very interesting time. A lot of things changed. 10 years ago, the Iron Curtain was opened.
Yes.
And then we had all these developing groups all over the world. You worked on that. A lot of people have been working on that. The idea about the routers came up. So it was an opening. It was a situation of opening, and this was, I really liked it. And the work in the team it is like the work in the team, but the work in the team can be very difficult. And sometimes it was really difficult. But
so what was pleasurable was seeing things opening up, the possibilities for more Jungian analysis in different parts of the world.
And this is also the nice part. The nice part is when you are going then around, you go to different societies, but you usually go when they have difficulties. And this is a little bit sad, because then you don't go to the societies where life is flourishing. And so you have the idea, so there are such a lot of societies in the world with difficulties.
Well, we'll come to that. So your role was, rather than going and necessarily only teaching and facilitating, was sort of what we would call troubleshooting.
The president of the IAP at that time had to be a troubleshooter.
And was there a lot of that during your time?
Even before there had been a lot.
Yeah. And were those the kind of, I imagine at some level you would have enjoyed trying to help with those societies in difficulty.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it also to talk to different people and to be even a kind of mediator. But sometimes you can't do it. I think some troubles are really due to personalities. And if you have a very difficult personality in a group, and you as long as you can talk to people, then it's not a problem. But if they resist to talk, or if they pretend to have the only truth and the only right training, then it's, what would you do?
I find that rather depressing, since as analysts, we're all supposed to be able to sort of think about things. But that does happen rather a lot, I think. Yeah. What didn't you like about being president? What did you feel with the...
This I didn't like.
This you didn't like.
This I didn't like. And it was in that time also a very consuming situation. I think we have now a different structure. I was a young president. I was 50 years old, and I had also. I was at the university. I was working as an analyst, and I had this. So, and I was writing 2 books in the same time. But I think the writing of the books was very important because that was my inner world. And so this going, actually, I liked it in a way to be around in the world. And I personally, I also tried to see not only the conflict situation, but to visit museums, art museums. And so I always got something, even if I had to work hard. But actually, it was a lot of work. Afterwards, you don't know how you have managed it, but we have managed it.
I remember you said to me once, when you're president, everybody wants to be your friend. When you're no longer president, you discover who your friends really are.
Yeah, this is good. This is correct. But there remain some friends, really.
Yes.
You have to be honest.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I suppose that leads me on to, two things, really. One was that talking about the developments which you enjoyed in other parts of the world, certainly during my time as vice president, we were attacked hugely, especially by some of the Swiss people who were very anxious that developing all these trainings in other cultures where we would go and visit would threaten all the programs developed in Switzerland where people would come here to train. I just wondered what you thought about that. It was a difficult time.
Yeah, but look, you can't hinder something. I think if you say, I fear that it will, I don't know the word, watering our training constitutional, they will diminishing.
Yes.
Then you react out of anxiety, and if you feel that what you are doing is good, and it is in a good shape, you have not to fear that.
Yeah.
And I have never understood this reaction. For me, it is a reaction of people who say, no, this belongs to me and don't touch it. And nothing belongs to you only in the world. You have to share. And if you share, it's getting better. And if you will keep it for yourself, you get very poor.
And it seems to me just this weekend when we were working together here in Zurich, people did come. People do still come. We have people from Italy, from Korea, from China present with us. So that hasn't stopped.
No, it doesn't stop.
But
I think it is very interesting what happens with these new groups. And I'm waiting even now, because I think I very often think they have adopted our training requirements. But actually, if you have another cultural background, perhaps analysis should be different. I would like them much more to be a little bit rebellious, because then it would also touch us again. It would give an input also for us.
Well, they need more people like you, because it surprised me that they had a training of the router training. When they qualified, they had an opportunity to do other things, instead of which they've sort of repeated a lot of the time the kind of training that they had as a router for the next generation.
Yeah, and sometimes much more rigid than we are doing it.
Yeah, that's also true.
Perhaps this is the first generation. The first generation has to be safe. And to be safe means you imitate the parents.
Yeah.
But then perhaps the second generation is perhaps a little bit more rebellious.
Yes, it's a bit when you went to university. Yes, you found something. Yeah, that makes sense. I think a lot of us in the world, certainly in the UK, were terribly shocked at the time when the Young Institute, which was the centre of the world and centre of the human world, and seemed to me to be so solid and stable, had a big conflict and a rift. I wondered now, some years on, whether you could say a little bit about how you understand what happened and how things are now.
Yeah, sure. We have also been shocked how we shocked the world, because I got phone calls in the middle of the night. Verena, you can't let it do. You have to do something. We do not want to lose the Jung Institute, and this is our mother house, and we really have been just struggling. What I see is, you said it is so solid. It was too solid. It was for a long time. It didn't change. The board of trustees, the curatorium, had a lot of power, and the teachers had no real position. They had nothing to say. And the trustees always said, this is the constitution. We can't change anything. And then life became, for example, there are more outer requirements from the Swiss Board of Public Health, and the institute did not react. And because they had been in their bubble, but then there had been a decrease of students. We had never problems of money, but then money became short. And then the curatorium said to the analysts, now you have to pay something to be a part of the institute. And then we had been really very unwilling to say, we have nothing to say, we have to teach almost for nothing, and now we should even pay. And then it came, there had been also personal problems. And that was the moment when a part of the curator, of the analysts said, no, we had been discussions, and they said, we go away, we have a new institute. And that was the moment when they founded the ISA. And some of us, we said, no, we don't give up the brand C.G. Jung Institute. We could easily understand that they said, we have enough. We set up our own training. We do not want to have these discussions all the time. It was absolutely understandable that you have to go, but there have been quite a lot of us, and especially older people telling, but C.G. Jung Institute is a brand, and C.G. Jung Institute is something important. It is also not only a brand; it's an emotional core. We try to keep it. And the interesting thing is, then we had a lot of more trouble, and there had been a mediator group, and it ended in that it was clear that the curatorium could delegate lots of things. They could have delegated all the time aspects of the Jung Institute to the analysts, and they did it now in this moment. And since then, the training, that the whole training section is in the responsibility of the analysts and of the teachers.
So they've let go of some of their power.
They let go of some of the powers, and since then we have it's very vivid. Then, but with the ISAP, lots of American students went to the ISAP, and so we became creative. So it's interesting. The people who had remained at the institute, you would say the one who went to the ISAP, these are the ones who are perhaps more looking forward, and the other one are perhaps a little bit more holding back. But we developed much more, and we had to develop much more. And I think we had to create this international block program. And now with COVID, the international block program is also hybrid. So we had the whole time, we had to create something. And that makes that the Jung Institute is very much alive.
And did people rely on you a lot for your ideas at that time too? since you decided to stay and not go?
I think they had been very happy that I stayed. And even your colleagues not very often thank you. That sometimes someone came and said, oh, I was so happy that you and Ruth Amann and Ingrid Riedel, we have been with the all three people that you stayed and that you, because it was not just staying, you had to contain it, and you had to bear it, because it was a huge tension. But we are very happy that we did it.
And how do you see, I mean, I was thinking in London where we've had lots of splits based on personalities, but now, I mean, those personalities are no longer alive. We have quite good collegial relationships. You know, there are 4 or 5 trainings in London, and we all, you know, we teach on each other's trainings. And then something moves on, you know, it's a different. How do you see the future with 2 institutes?
Well, I don't think that we will continue to have 2 institutes. I think people are coming back to our institute. We are very open, and we say you can teach in our institute, you can teach you can be in ISAP at the same time. And so we have quite a lot of people who are joining us.
Do they have to pay double membership then?
They have to pay double membership, but the membership is not that high, so it's not really.
Yeah.
And I think I have not the idea. We have been discussing it for 10 years, how we could come together. And it was very clear. It was not a topic of contents when we separated, but now it is a topic of contents, because the ISAP is much more archetypal. ISAP does not want to fulfill the requirements of the Federal Office of Public Health. And we want to do that. And that means that we have a program of psychotherapy. And we have psychoanalysts, sure, the old psychoanalytical training, but you can also do only, you are a federal recognized psychotherapist, and you can do this in the university.
And is that mainly for people that live in Switzerland?
It is for people who live in Switzerland and who have studied psychology or medical doctor.
Well, thank you for telling me a bit about that. I wanted to talk a bit about your writing. I think you're the only Jungian analyst I know that makes money from her books. But how did that develop? And I mean, you're very productive in your writing, and I wondered if you could say a bit about that and how your style of writing has developed over time.
Well, I think when I was a child, I always wanted to write books. My idea was I become a writer for books for children and for adolescents, because I always run out of books to read. And so I think if you have no books to read, then you can write the book. Then I forgot it. And when I was at the university, you have to give lectures. And you have to prepare a lecture. And if you have prepared a lecture, and I was in a very, very fortunate situation, I was in the department of anthropological psychology, and I had to cover depth psychology there. And so, but I could, at least couldn't do it in the latest years, but before it was also very liberal, and I could do what I wanted to do. I had to do complex episodes, I had to do dreams, but then I started with my interest with emotions, because this has a connection to complex episodes. And then when you have prepared a lecture, you have the architecture of an essay. And so then I started to write. I started afterwards, after the semester, I started to write the book. Actually, I think writing is a very introverted job. And to write, for me, it is like meditation. Sometimes I swear, and I think it's hard to find the right expressions but
you write in German.
I write in German, yeah.
But it seems to me that another gift that you have is to write at different levels. I mean, you have the capacity to write to sophisticated audiences, and you also, a lot of your books are written for the general public, aren't they?
Absolutely.
And I was wondering how do they sit well together, those two styles of writing?
Well, I think I did more writing for the public.
That's why you made money. Yes, yes.
But it is also an intention, because I have the idea, and this was my experience, that people want to know something about psychology, and if you can't understand it, they just feel not intelligent enough. And coming from the background I'm coming from, I'm used that I had to express myself in a way that people did understand. Because if I would have started to talk in a highly academic way, this would have been very difficult, and I wouldn't have belonged at all.
So being a teacher has left you with some skills.
Yeah. And I think it was also the time when at the university you have been criticized when you have when you did write these books, because you had to write these sophisticated books no one is reading. But then came a time where it is university and city, and the idea what is done in the university has to be brought to the city. And in this moment, there have been other colleagues who did the same thing as I did. And in this moment, we have been very much accepted at the university, because we have been the one who have been able to bring the university to the city. But it is also my conviction. I don't want to write a book is such a lot of energy. I don't want to write a book just for some people can read it, and it is good for your reputation.
So writing comes from something else, a different kind of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which of your books do you feel most proud of?
This is a question I was asked thousands of times, and I can't tell you. Or I don't want to. I don't want to qualify them, you know? It is always, after some time you can say, yeah, I started with this book about mourning, and I did the grief process. This was my postdoc dissertation at the university, and I think this is really close to my heart, and all the follower books which have this tendency to take leave and to start again. I think this is something that goes through, and also but also all my books about emotions, and I like it, and I forget that I have written it.
Yeah. So that's the central interest, emotions.
Emotion is the central interest.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think when you read Jung in 1906, when he says the basic of our personality is emotion, and this he quotes Bleuler, and this was when Bleuler said, and Jung can prove that with the association test. And then Jung very seldom did mention specific emotions.
He understood it somehow.
He understood it. Yeah, sure, he understood it, but he didn't mention it. This is, and I try to be more practical. If you are talking about emotions, then you are talking also about body and spirit.
And a kind of last question, really. Well, first of all, do you have any regrets? Are there things in your life that you think that you you wish, I knew you were going to say no to this, that you wish you had done that you haven't done, let's say, as a first part of this question?
I have a difficulty with regret. Why should I regret something that is already past? I could, as long as I'm vivid, then I think that is fine. If I would start again, I'm not sure if I would do the IAP presidency. I'm really not sure. Because it took a lot, it really took a lot of it. It took a lot of energy. But on the other hand, when I'm now thinking back and I meet the old colleagues, then I think, oh, it was okay. Look, I think I had a lot of options in my life, and very often I could take the option, and I did my best, and then I left it again. I'm not someone to regret so much, because I think, why should I use my energy to regret?
Yeah, well, that's reminds me of your book about hope.
Yeah.
Well, and the final question, in England, we talk about bucket lists, and what we mean by that is, are there things that you have on your agenda that you would still like to do, the things that feel important? You're just over 80. So, hopefully you've got a lot longer to live. But what are the things that you would still like to do, whatever they are, not necessarily just work things, but
well, I want to have much more time just to observe the nature, to observe my birds.
And the deer in your garden.
And the deer in my garden. This is an important point. And I have the wish, I have some museums in the world are like home for me. And to these museums I would like to go again. It is in Cologne, it is the Wallraf Museum.
Where? In Cologne?
Cologne.
Cologne, yeah.
It is in Spain. I even do not know the name, but there is a wonderful museum where you have medieval art. Then I would like to go again to the Tate Gallery. Some museums in Paris, but I would also like to go again to the MoMA. And there is a very nice museum in Philadelphia. This is, and so I think I don't visit all those because I have also very much ecological concerns. But I think this is something. Some museums I have to go to again. And from working or from ideas, I'm thinking a lot about ecology. And I'm also thinking about that we are a culture of loss. We lose a lot of things because we always get new things. And we are happy that we have new things, but we don't know what we lose. And we have to, I think we have to mourn. We have to be more consciously mourn. And on the other hand, we have to create imaginations how life could go on in a better way, that we do not hurt so much nature and that we are also better to each other. So much more caring than this competitive relationship. And I think for this we should have little groups who do imagination together. What could be a good life? And these are ideas I have, and I would also like to talk with others about it.
Anything else that's on your bucket list?
Yeah, all my old philosophers. I go back to all my old philosopher books I have from my studies, and I'm really enjoying to write Seneca, to read Seneca again, and to read it I try even to do the translation sometimes from the Latin to the German to look if the translation is okay.
And you probably read them with different eyes now.
Absolutely, and it is so interesting to have the books. I'm always marking the books. I'm writing in the books. I'm marking in the books, and I encountered the young Verena Kast.
With little markings.
With a little markings. But then I sometimes see myself, I wrote Quatsch.
Yes. So it's a way of...
And actually, with the bucket list, I'm also open. I don't think that I have to plan everything. I have only to be open to look what is coming to me.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think that's a nice sentence to end on. So thank you. I very much enjoyed listening to you. We could go on for another hour, I'm
Thank
sure,
you, Jane.
but I think we can stop there.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.